Hello everyone. Today we are bringing you the latest version of the CKA question bank, version 1.35. Next, we will specifically talk about this topic. As before, there are 16 questions and we will discuss the methods for solving them. First of all, the overall outline of the 16 questions, that is, the main content of the exam, has not changed much. However, there are a few questions where some of the detailed parameters have been adjusted. There have indeed been some changes, including certain command options, which have also been updated. Since the version has been upgraded, some commands have actually changed. Next, we will explain in detail what you need to pay attention to. First, let's take a look at the first question. So, the first question is still about the familiar HPA. For this question, there are actually some differences between the commands in the new and old versions. This question, in fact, has undergone some changes. This is one of the 66 key points, which means that each question we'll discuss later actually represents a key point. The first question is about an issue with HPA's automatic scaling. First, let's take a look at the requirements for this question. Basically, we need to create one ourselves, an HPA. So what are the main requirements that need to be met? They include the following. The maximum and minimum values refer to the maximum and minimum number of replicas for scaling, and the CPU usage percentage means at what CPU usage percentage scaling should start. Usually it's 50%, meaning scaling starts when CPU usage reaches 50%. And finally, we need to set a window period of 30 seconds. So this basically covers the main content of this question, the key points you need to focus on. The window period, or the stabilization window, is generally set to 30 seconds. So these are the 4 requirements. As for the solution to this problem, what we usually do is first use a command to create the HPA resource and at the same time configure our 3 different settings for it. As for the parameters, you need to fill them in. One is the minimum value, one is the maximum value, and one is the usage percentage, which is set to 50%. Now regarding the usage percentage, there are some differences between the new and old versions. There are slight differences, but since newer versions are compatible with older ones, both the old and new commands can be used. In a moment, I'll explain in detail how to write these 2 commands. So first of all, for this part, so here we have these 3 items, right? Now, as for the 4th requirement, the easiest and most straightforward way to handle this is, after we have successfully created the resource, we can then directly use the edit command to modify the specific information of the resource that we have already created. Then inside, we just need to fill in our 30-second reduced safety window, and that's it. This is the complete solution approach for our first question. So next, let's specifically show everyone how to tackle this question. So, to solve it, first, now let's remotely connect to our environment. First, connect to the environment remotely. After remotely connecting to each environment, please note that here I have already used SC to remotely connect to this machine. This is the host number 50 for the first question, which is CK. Of course, in reality, what situation are we actually in now? So right now, this is actually a simulated environment. It's not a real host. In the actual environment, during the real exam, there are actually many real hosts for you to connect to. There are many hosts available for you to connect to. And these hosts are, in fact, each one actually corresponds to the environment for a specific question. That is, these 10 questions, or rather the 16 topics. Each have 16 completely different environments. There is no connection between them at all. So here, everyone should note this. Let me emphasize this for everyone. If during the exam you encounter a question where you suddenly get an error and no matter what you do, you just can't solve it, you can just skip it. It won't affect any of the following questions. The 16 questions are completely independent as long as, right? It's okay if you run into a problem with one question. You can just move on to the next one. Just skip it. Don't put unnecessary psychological pressure on yourself. Also, for each question, make sure you connect to the correct host. If you connect to the wrong host, you might spend a long time typing, and then when you finally execute, right? When you execute a file like AE, you might find all sorts of errors popping up. There's nothing there. This resource is missing. That resource is missing, right? That could be because you connected to the wrong host. So pay attention here. The very first step is to connect to the host. Once you're connected, then we can start the actual operations. First, let's take a look at what this question is mainly about. The first step is to create our HPA resource. Alright, when creating the resource, we can just create it directly using our tool. Here, it's best to specify the namespace first, as this will help with automatic completion later on. As you can see, I hardly have to type many letters, usually just 2 or 3, and it completes automatically. Just press the tab key to autocomplete. This is actually one of the benefits of specifying the namespace first. Then at the end, use name to specify the name. Here, everyone should pay attention to the details, especially when it comes to naming. Make sure to be careful with the details. You must pay attention to the details. What if I write the name incorrectly, right? These will all cost you points. Why? Because these questions, these naming questions, have clear requirements in the prompt. You're not just allowed to create any name you want, right? It specifically tells you in which namespace to create a resource with what kind of name, right? Then, regarding the specific percentage, here, when it comes to percentages, everyone needs to pay special attention. If you're using a newer version, what can you use? Dash CPU equals what? 50. Dash CPU equals 50. Note, that's 50%. Here, you need to include the percent sign. This is one way to write it. Dash CPU equals 50%. That's one way. And then, as for our way of writing it, yes, it's still this one. Previously, I demonstrated this for everyone. It was dash something, CPU. So dash what? Dash percent. So in the old version, you would write percent in front to indicate percentage, right? In the new version, you can just put the percent sign directly after the number. That's the difference between the two ways of writing it. Both are fine. It's up to you which one to use because the new version is compatible with the old one. Either way works. Yeah, both are okay. Next, let's add a minimum bracket value. Also, one more thing for everyone to note. Every time you finish writing a command or after you finish writing a configuration file, don't forget to check it. The most straightforward and best way is to just press enter after you finish writing, right? If there's an error, it'll show up. It's the same with files. After you finish writing, just press enter. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. If you make a mistake, just fix it and then run it again and it'll be fine. There's really no problem where you're not allowed to correct your mistakes after the first try. It's right here. Actually, the most efficient way is to just execute it directly because if you run it right away and there are no issues, it goes through, right? If there is a problem, it'll clearly tell you where it is, right? If there's an error, like right now, honestly, I haven't even looked at this command yet. I'm just going to press enter and see if there's an error. If there is, I'll fix it. That's really all there is to it. It's fine. We can just execute it directly here. Okay. It says creation was successful, which means there were no errors, right? No mistakes. Next, let's start editing because there's still one thing we haven't set, which is this one. The cooldown period. We need to change the cooldown period to 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Here, we can just use edit to modify the HPA and add our, just the name is fine. After entering, which part do we need to change? Here, everyone should pay attention. We need to find the section for our maximum value. The main issue here is what? The indentation must be correct. Everything else is fine, right? The content you write is fixed. So mainly, every time you come in, just make sure you find the right spot. Which spot? It's where you find the maximum value. We find a marker, right? The maximum value, 40,000, which we just wrote ourselves. And it's at this position. Between here and the matrix below, you can insert it here, just insert it directly here. Let's insert our window period here. As for the window period, actually this S is indeed quite long. So everyone, just make a note of this. For some commands, I actually recommend that everyone memorize them if your technical skills are good. Although it's true that during the exam we can look up the official documentation, there's nothing wrong with that, you can check the official docs. But if you remember them, it saves you some time. Because during the exam, how should I put it? The practice effect during the exam is not as good as in our own environment. It's not as good as our simulated environment. Why do I say this? Because this is something that many students experience. It's based on experience because of this. When you connect to the exam center's network, it's not always guaranteed, right? Even if your internet speed is fine, if you're too far from the exam center, your network might be affected. Your internet speed could fluctuate, and sometimes when you click or type, there might be some lag. This is all normal, it's completely normal, so... First of all, during the exam, everyone must make sure that your internet connection is stable and in the best possible condition. Also, you need to be well practiced yourself and try to minimize checking the official documentation. The main reason is that if your network isn't very good, opening the official documentation and similar actions can also affect your performance. Right? It will also affect your actual operations. So, in this regard, try to reduce the number of times you check the official documentation. Try to write everything yourself, which actually saves time. If you really get too nervous or forget something, it's fine to take a quick look at it, right? After all, the official documentation is there for people to refer to. Alright, so after we've made the changes here, let's save it and see how it works. As before, the edit command comes with built-in checks and syntax validation. If you make a mistake, it won't let you save it properly, right? If it shows edit completed here, that means the changes were correct. Finally, let's check this. We just need to check our HPA information. How do we check it? You just open, that thing. You can simply use our command to get and view the HPA information directly. Yeah, the HPA information. Just now over here, we used alter. Automatic scaling. Alright, generally I always use auto-completion, right? Basically things like namespaces and so on, including this HPA. Actually, except for the key parts like commands and options, those can't be auto-completed, right? Except for the display and those options, basically everything else can be auto-completed. Right? If you can use auto-completion, use it. It's faster. Also, what gets auto-completed is definitely correct, because if you type it out manually, you might make a mistake, especially if you only type one letter. It's hard to say. But if it can be auto-completed, that means it definitely exists. Otherwise, it wouldn't show up. Also, in our environment, there won't be any unnecessary items appearing. Whatever can be auto-completed is definitely something required by the question, so you can confidently use auto-completion here. Let's take a look directly. First, 50%, right? No problem. And the items from 1 to 4 are also fine. Okay, as for the 30 seconds, this really can't be seen using our regular query commands. The get query command really can't display it. In this case, what can you do? You can only go back and edit it yourself, if necessary. There's nothing we can do about this. You'll have to come in and manually check it again. You find it here, right? Once you see this, our window period is set to 30 seconds, and that's fine. As long as the 30 seconds is correct, the main thing is to check the time. Why? Because when you added that section just now, if there was a syntax error, you wouldn't have been able to save it. So if it saved successfully here, what does that mean? It means you definitely is correct. The syntax must be correct, right? The only thing you need to check is the timing. As long as this part is set to 30 seconds, there's no problem. Then it's okay, all right? That's our first question. In the future, I'll continue to explain other questions for everyone. Basically, every day I'll bring you a new question. And as for this, if anyone is interested in the latest question bank, you can always discuss it in the comments section below, or just contact me directly via private message, all right? So that's all for today, everyone. Bye-bye.